BLUELOCK's U20 World Cup is almost here, with the tournament officially beginning in less than 2 days from the release of Chapter 310. And with this tournament comes many predictions and speculations as to what people think are going to happen. Already we have the future antagonists of Loki and Charles, the latest New Generation 11 in Bunny Iglesias set up to be the eventual rival for Sai Itoshi, but also the confirmation of the other unnamed New Generation 11 who will be participating in the league. It's safe to say that we are in for an incredible tournament arc. But what exactly do you think is going to happen during the U20 World Cup? What are your predictions for this highly anticipated moment of the BLUELOCK story? Well, in today's video, I won't be just going through my predictions for the U20 World Cup. I'll be giving you my BLUELOCK Japan U20 World Cup bingo sheet, covering my thoughts as to what will happen and why going into this major event. This video is tied to my massive charity stream tomorrow, so if you guys are excited to see that, make sure to watch this video all the way through. Before I get into the video though, I want to leave a spoiler warning for the latest chapter of the BLUELOCK manga being chapter 310. If you have not read it, I would suggest you click off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. And also, join my Discord server, it's called the New Egoist Geeks, and the link to it is down below. Now, the first of my predictions is actually one that I think makes sense given the context of one character. I believe that Shido will score a Big Bang Drive goal as an opening goal during the U20 World Cup. My reasoning for this should be fairly obvious, right? I mean, it's literally called the Big Bang Drive. The Big Bang was the event that created everything and started everything. So wouldn't it be poetic to have Shido score a Big Bang Drive to kick off a game? Shido's a character who narratively has been ranked in the top 3 consistently throughout the story, and yet doesn't really hold any kind of narrative importance, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, our consistently top 3 character has no backstory, no depth to his philosophy as a striker or his ego, and recently during the last match that he participated in, did absolutely nothing of worthy note, excluding the first 5 chapters of that game. It feels a little bit weird to me. But having Shido kickstart a game with a big bang, scoring using his Big Bang Drive, it just makes sense to me. Plus, I'm not the biggest fans of techniques being invented and then just never being used again. I don't like one and done moves. Like Isagi's direct back heel shot would be one of those moves, something invented for one specific circumstance, until we saw the back heel be used in the Manchan City game to send a final pass to Yukimiya. Even though it isn't exactly the same, the circumstances are somewhat similar, so I would still consider it to be a similar technique. So in the U20 World Cup, let Shido score a Big Bang Drive. We won't have Sai for the first couple of games to set it up for him, but with players like Hiyori and Ryo, 2 masterclass midfielders, I'm sure he could get it done. Next up, we have a prediction that I've spoken about for a long time, even to where I made a video dedicated to this theory. I believe Sendo will awaken Predator Eye in the U20 World Cup. Now, if you want my detailed breakdown of this theory, you can go check out the video where I go more in depth for this possibility. But to summarize it quickly, there is no evidence to say that Sendo does not have the potential to awaken Predator Eye, given what we know about his character. Actually, there's even more evidence to say that he could awaken the ability as opposed to him not. When you look at Sendo's ego type, it does coincide with him having a restrictive ego. One core piece of evidence to conclude this is actually his reaction to Sai's pass in the match against BLUELOCK. Sendo does originally panic about the pass before overcoming it with confidence, saying how he could catch up to it and become the hero. He essentially broke free from the restriction of his previous inadequacies. But you can also look at other key points with Aiku and his stopping of Bachata's shot as more evidence, but I digress. The biggest point to consider as well is the specialized training assigned by Ego during BLUELOCK's 2-week break. But in relation to Predator Eye's capabilities, the vision ability is exclusive to restrictive ego types when you compare them to the current users. All of the evidence presented leads to the point that Sendo will awaken Predator Eye, and I think it's just a matter of time before he does. If you're still doubting though, feel free to peep my video breaking down this theory for more specificity. But as for characters that I think will perform well in the U20 World Cup, I honestly think that Nagi has some potential with his return through Baratsura. So much so that I think Nagi will score another fake volley goal during the U20 World Cup. Now this prediction may seem kind of basic, but I do have some evidence to support this. Typically, whenever Nagi goes through an awakening, his signature move to display this awakening is the fake volley. In the second selection, he created this weapon during his awakening to stop and defeat Rain. In the match against Isagi, Nagi awakened and created the revolver fake volley to defeat Isagi and score. And in his match against FC Barca, Nagi faked out a Barca defender using a fake volley technique, where we see Nagi enter flow during such. You can even look at the final episode Nagi chapter where Nagi instinctively used the fake volley technique to defeat Phantom Isagi. So during every single moment of an awakening for Nagi, a feint volley technique is present. And let's be honest, while you can say that the fake volley technique is overused, do you really have any complaint about it being so? I mean, every time we see the art for this fake, it's absolutely stunning. So based on Nagi's specific actions during his development, a fake volley goal from him in the U20 World Cup seems somewhat likely. And when it comes to our goated main character, there is one area that he falls short in, and that's simply his ability to win one-on-one duels. But why does that matter? It's a team sport. Yeah, no shit, but this is also a manga where 1v1 matchups do exist. Rin versus Sai, Augi versus Kunigami, Noa versus Lavinho. The latter of that was literally emphasized as a 1v1 that no one could intervene with. So yes, 1v1s do exist in the series, and Isagi is unfortunately horrible at them. His greatest weapon being Metavision is best used in team situations and team plays, so in 1v1 matchups, his greatest weapon is essentially useless. But during the U20 World Cup, I predict that Isagi will not only win a 1v1 matchup, but it will be against a new generation 11. Isagi's training in the past few weeks, as well as his NEL development, have pushed him to a level to where I would say in relation to team play, he surpasses someone like Kaiser, a new generation 11. However, he still needs to boost his individual talent when it relates to 1v1 matchups. I need to see Isagi defeat someone in a one-on-one, and a new generation 11 being his victim will be the perfect player to do so against. When you look at every single new generation 11, all of them possess some kind of genius level talent. Sai has perfect passing, Kaiser has his rapid shooting, Lorenzo has his body contortion, and Bunny has his jumping. And sure, every single new generation 11 likely has an ability like this, however I want to see one specialize in team play and playmaking capabilities as well as have an incredibly high game IQ. That's where Isagi shines the most, so having them duel in a matter of field manipulation and then individual talent would be a great display for Isagi's development. We had a teaser of this possibility with Isagi in the PXG game, but this plot point really went nowhere when it related to Isagi versus Charles, since Yori ended up being his duel partner. So please, for the love of God, let Isagi win a one-on-one matchup. I'm begging here. Now, obviously, when looking at the entire series, the one element of play that we have not seen in any capacity is a penalty kick. Even more so, a penalty shootout. But going into the U20 World Cup, I predict that we're going to see a penalty shootout, specifically against a new generation 11 goalkeeper. I could see BLUELOCK struggling to score any goals against the new Gen 11 goalkeeper and be forced to play defense. And this would be the moment of Gagamaru's awakening. He'd probably encourage the team to try and hold out defensively as he would try and hold the line for a penalty shootout, saying how he could defeat the other guy when it relates to that. And since Gagamaru really hasn't been the central focus within Evolution at all in the series, I think he's definitely got it in him to get some attention. Plus, against a new Gen 11 goalkeeper, who is better to challenge them than our very own crazy Jungle Boy? Looking at one of my favorite underrated characters in the series, Mikage Ryo has a lot of potential for a major role in the U20 World Cup. With Nagi getting locked off and now potentially returning, but also his challenge from Ego to become the master copy and copy the BLUELOCK Japan team, Ryo has a lot of potential for development and importance going into the next arc. One thing that I think will happen when it relates to Ryo is that he'll score a goal by copying Isagi's twin gun volley technique. Looking at Ryo's specific training during his 2-week period, he was tasked to learn to copy the techniques of the top 23 for the BLUELOCK Japan team. And it got me thinking, what technique would he copy from Isagi that other players don't already have? It can't be Metavision since he already subconsciously has the ability. It can't be ambidexterity because other characters like Nanase and Kunigami already possess this skill. And it can't be general off-the-ball movement since every player already has that ability. So to me, by process of elimination, it's the twin gun volley. Seeing Ryo copy the twin gun volley would just be so cool in my opinion. Isagi creating the weapon by taking inspiration from Nagi, to which Ryo would then copy Isagi, it's essentially having Ryo score from Nagi's original weapon. Yes, I'm making that connection here, don't judge me. Ryo is one of my favorite characters, and I know that he's going to perform like a beast going into the U20 World Cup. And using the twin gun volley to score his own goal, it's just the start for Ryo. Now this prediction may be a little less mysterious, but it's more just me kind of hoping. But I want to see Augi play for England in the U20 World Cup. Augi is such an underrated character in BLUELOCK, and his presence in the NEL was something I feel people disregard. In relation to his physical abilities, he was essentially helping Nagi carry out any plays that he wanted to thanks to his abnormally long limbs and strength, but he was also able to duel Kunigami in a one-on-one fairly easily. Even Kaiser acknowledged him as a prominently strong opponent based on their matchups against each other. And Augi unironically has an incredibly high game IQ, being essentially what is the key mind of Manshine City, and even helped Nagi create his newest technique, the Zero Reset turn. With England being a country that Japan is going to face in the world stage, I feel like Augi being a member of their U20 team would be great for the former Manshine City players. Less so for Chigiri, but more for Nagi and Ryo. With Nagi's return essentially confirmed and Ryo now devoting himself to playing by himself, having Augi be their opponent makes a lot of sense. Augi was the player who told them numerous times to start playing for themselves, and now going into the U20 World Cup, have Ryo and Nagi show him their new individual strength since being split up. Hell, this could be the moment where Ryo would score his twin gun volley copy goal, and maybe even have Nagi score his fake volley goal. Now, we all know how impressive the New Generation 11 are, however, I would like to see a twin or pair New Generation 11. I'm predicting that one country will have two New Generation 11, with them either being twins or a reflective pair. What I mean by that is that they would either be biological twins or they would share a same role on the pitch, with both players being wingers, for example. If they're both wingers, one could be a dribbler and one could be a sprinter. Looking at the BLUELOCK series, the only existence of twin players is the Wanima brothers, and their dynamic was actually very interesting to me. So having an upscaled version of these players as New Generation 11 could be very interesting. Plus, if they were a dribbler and a sprinter, you could have the two best wingers in Bachara and Chigiri, who are also both sprinters and dribblers, match up against them. I know the concept of the flag shown being the countries that possess a New Generation 11, but when you think about it, something doesn't really add up. Like, looking at France, for example, they're supposed to have a New Generation 11? You're telling me that BLUELOCK is going to have to defeat Loki, Charles, and this new gen? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me plot-wise, they just seem too overpowered. It's funny because my next two predictions are also about the France team. Like the Sendo point, I covered these in a separate video, which you can go check out for a more in-depth explanation. But for the first of the two, I believe that Karasu and Hiyori are going to be used to shut down Charles. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me based off of the characters. During the time at PXG, Karasu was the player who worked with Charles the most, feeding him passes and setting him up for assists. We see in chapter 256 that Karasu baited two players towards him to make space for Charles, and in 252, Karasu was the man who fed Charles a pass while distracting Hiyori and Isagi. Out of everyone on PXG from BLUELOCK, Karasu is by far the most knowledgeable about how Charles likes to play and how his mentality influences his plays. Plus, with his awakening of metavision towards the end of the game, he's honestly one of the best candidates to mark Charles as his defensive midfielder. The same logic applies to Hiyori in this context. Hiyori on Bastion München's side was the first player to intercept and comprehend Charles' mentality on an opposing team. This was shown with his interception of Charles' pass to Shido through Ness and Kaiser's block. With Hiyori being one of the best metavision users on the BLUELOCK Japan team, and with Sai eventually stealing his position as the playmaking offensive midfielder, I feel like having Karasu and Hiyori mark Charles is the best option for both players. Not even considering Hiyori and Karasu's previous existing chemistry together, these two are the best people to handle the contrarian. As for the other threat on the France team being Loki, it's pretty clear who's going to be used to stop him. Chigiri and Zantetsu are the dudes who are going to lock him down. We've seen in the episode Nagi spin-off manga how powerful this double speeds through chemical reaction can be. Sure, Karasu did note that this all-out sprint method could only be used a few times, but that was prior to their NEL training. Hell, this was all the way back in the second selection. With all their stamina and physical endurance increases, they could likely perform this chemical reaction much easier and much more frequently. Like I said, there is way more to this theory, so if you want to hear exactly how these players will lock down the France's ace, please go check it out. Going into the U20 World Cup, we are going to need a captain to direct and maintain leadership for the BLUELOCK Japan team. One of the most likely nominations is Isagi, as his performance and his position as the number 1 of BLUELOCK make him a reasonable pick for the captain role. However, I'm not really sure that Isagi is the best pick. In my opinion, I would rather have Aiku as my captain, and I believe that he will become our captain. While Isagi isn't a bad pick by any means, Aiku just embodies that captain energy from his time as captain for the previous U20 team. And in a story of all strikers, I feel like having the captain be your defender and the best defender on your team feels much better than just making your striker the captain. Plus, Aiku just has this aura that exudes confidence. Even looking at the moments of downtime during the U20 game, he easily knows how to bring people's confidence and mood back up with simple dialogue conversation. He is a much better pick than Mr. Hold'em back Karasu. Not to mention, Aiku is the only person that Barou will respectively take orders from, so will anyone else be able to control Barou? Because of that, Aiku is 100% the best pick for captain, and it's not even close. But what also feels right is having Barou play as the solo striker against Italy in the U20 World Cup. Now, this would be done for one specific reason, to deal with the Ace Eater and the New Generation 11 in Don Lorenzo. Barou and Lorenzo in the NAO were people that I would honestly consider to be friends, or at least friendly with each other. And I feel like having Barou and Lorenzo match up against each other would be great for his development. With Barou as the solo striker, Lorenzo would be forced to man mark him, which would not only give Barou a task to evolve under, but also place him in the restriction he needs to in order to awaken and evolve. Plus, with his training thanks to the American players, Barou has increased his physical dominance over plays, which just so happens to be Lorenzo's most apparent weakness when it comes to his defensive style. This also ties into my prediction for Sendo, where by locking down Barou, Sendo could awaken Predator Eye and use this moment to score a goal for himself, which by having the spotlight stolen more, would plunge Barou into deeper darkness, which would then result in his awakening being even more fruitful. I think the matchup between Lorenzo and Barou would be so legendary to the point where I think it could surpass Rain vs Sai in the U20 game. Say what you will, but I'm ready for that eventual duel of the Ace Eater and the King of BLUELOCK. Before I get into the rest of my predictions, I want to remind you guys that if you are enjoying this video so far, to leave me a like and subscribe down below to see more awesome BLUELOCK content just like this. It costs you guys absolutely nothing and it helps me out immensely. And if you want to help even more, if you were to become a member of the channel, you'd earn some awesome benefits like personal video requests and shoutouts and videos, but you would also get your name mentioned in the BLUELOCK New World movie as a contributor to the project, and this also applies to leaving super chats. So like, subscribe, and become a member today to show your support for me and my content. When it comes to switching positions in BLUELOCK, it's done fairly frequently. Ari went from striker to defender, Kagamaru went from striker to goalkeeper, Sai went from midfielder to doggy style. But switching or changing the position that you want to play is pretty common within BLUELOCK. And it makes sense since we need defenders and goalkeepers in the story written about strikers. But when it relates to one player, I could see Kunigami converting to a total defensive position. Looking at the PXG game, his ego began to reawaken when he converted to a defensive midfielder position to stop Shido. Now this was less about the position that he converted into and more about his desire to get revenge on Shido, but I feel like Kunigami's position as a defensive midfielder is not done yet. With strikers like Isagi, Rin, Barou, Shido, Chigiri, and Bachara, what is Kunigami really going to be able to do to compete against them? But against defensive midfielders like Karasu, Nico, and Raichi, Kunigami has a much better shot at standing out. His hero mentality is likely going to reawaken during the U20 World Cup, and a hero's job is to save and protect people. What better example of saving or protecting someone than by playing as a defensive midfielder or really any defensive position, using his powerful physique to hold the backline or midfield for his team. I could totally see Kunigami converting to a defensive position for the majority of the U20 World Cup, reawakening his hero ego to fight another day. This next prediction isn't really about the U20 World Cup, but something that I think will happen during the U20 World Cup, that being the announcement of another spin-off manga. With episode Nagi's final chapter releasing, we have concluded the story of Nagi and Ryo for that side story. And with the popularity of this spin-off and with the release of the U20 World Cup, I could 100% see a new side story being released during this arc. Many are predicting stuff like an episode Sai or an episode Shido, and I would honestly love those possibilities. But with interviews done by the mangaka, he says that he would be interested in making an episode Karasu or an episode Kaiser. And while I would love an episode Kaiser, as Kaiser is one of my favorite characters, I think I can speak for everyone when I say we do not want or need a Karasu spinoff. Please, for the love of God, nobody wants a Karasu spinoff. Give us one for any other character, but don't give us one for Karasu, please. Something else we haven't seen in a long time in the manga is the presence of a red card. Back in the first selection, Kuon got a red card for tackling Nagi and stopping Team V's attack, but aside from that, we really got no involvement of a red card in the series. We got some dialogue with Sai speaking to Shido about holding back from attacking Nico unless he wants a red card. A lot of people believe that Rin would earn a red card in the U20 World Cup thanks to his Destroyer mode, but thanks to Ego-specific training teaching Rin to meditate to understand the truth of his ego, I feel like Destroyer mode is going to become a less crazy and violent version of Rin's playstyle. There's always the possibility of Shido earning a red card as well, since he does play a lot more physically dominant than most players, but honestly giving an opposing player a red card could be interesting. At the same time, I feel like if anyone were to get a red card, it'd be someone on the BLUELOCK team, you know, to put them in the underdog position. It makes the story more intense, you know? Now, the concept of genius and talented learner are ones that have been pushed since the end of the PXG game, and for about as long as those concepts have, I've been pushing for the idea of a genius and talented learner hybrid. Because when you really look at the terms of genius and talented learner, the possibility of there being a player that is a fusion of both of them is honestly really high. For example, take Sai's words to Shido during the U20 game. Realistically possible plays and the ideal plays you want to make, aim for a spot that blends both of those. Don't stop your inspiration. Visualize the best possible goal for this moment. This entire dialogue pretty much emphasizes the fusion of genius and talented learner tendencies. Realistically possible plays. Visualize the best possible goal for this moment. Those are nearly exactly what Isagi says when he embodies the total rationality mindset of a talented learner, leading to him awakening his true flow state. Ideal plays you want to make, "Don't stop your inspiration." Those are both the specific words that Rain used when in his Destroyer mode, as well as what Isagi determined is the key factor for geniuses and their mentality when playing. It's also worthy to note that this statement was made just before a chemical reaction between a talented learner and genius occurred, which technically is a fusion of genius and talented learner tendencies. This was even shown with Rain, who during the PXG game combined the mentality of a talented learner and a genius to stop Isagi with his 4-meter defensive zone. In turn, his aura was adjusted and transformed into this fusion of his Puppet Master hand and his destructive aura. There is definitely a lot more evidence to support this theory, and I think that we will eventually see a player who is a fusion of the talented learner ideal and the genius ideal in the U20 World Cup. Going into the U20 World Cup, I feel like seeing a character score a hat-trick isn't that far-fetched. In my opinion, on the BLUELOCK team, I could 100% see Rain scoring a hat-trick. This could be through scoring individual goals using Destroyer mode or just playing more rationally, as well as chemical reactions formed with Sai or Isagi. Rain is the best individual talent in the BLUELOCK project, far surpassing any other genius or talented learner. Even Isagi is below him, however Isagi outclasses Rain in team play and combination plays. But even then, Rain is still better than Isagi individually. And going into the U20 World Cup, I feel like the only player with the potential to score a hat-trick is Rain. Like I said, I can see him scoring 1 goal by himself, possibly using Destroyer mode, and the other 2 being scored thanks to chemical reactions with other players on the BLUELOCK team. Possibly against Spain if Sai chooses to work alongside Rain, or maybe in another knockout stage game. Honestly, I'm not sure when he would score the hat-trick, but I am confident to say that he will score a hat-trick. This theory is one that has been pushed for so long, and while I do hate it, I do think it is a huge possibility. Chigiri will tear his ACL again in the U20 World Cup. I absolutely hate this theory since Chigiri is my favorite character in the series, and to see him lose his passion again would just break me. Despite this, I'm putting this on my bingo board in the hopes that he doesn't tear his ACL again, but if he does, I'll at least mark something off on my board. If Chigiri were to tear his ACL again, it'd probably be in the matchup against Loki, where through overexertion he'd probably get injured again. This theory is one that I'm a huge advocate against, so let's just move on. Moving on we shall, because this is also a very popular theory. BLUELOCK Japan will lose the U20 World Cup. There's so much evidence that points to the idea that Japan will lose the U20 World Cup. For example, take Isagi and Ego's dialogue. Isagi is constantly saying how he will lead Japan to victory in the U20 World Cup, or how he will make Japan the hottest place in the world. And sure, is this just his confidence and ego talking? Yeah, but what if it comes back to bite him in the butt? And then you have to deal with Barou that if Ego fails to produce a victory in the U20 World Cup, then he's fired from being the director of BLUELOCK. Why would this proposal even be brought up in the story if nothing was going to come from it? Some will say that this is to emphasize the severity of the U20 World Cup, but we already know how important this moment will be in the series. It's to show that Japan is actually worth something in the current generation and actually has value, and if they fail, BLUELOCK as a whole will be presented as a failure. There are already a lot of stakes in the U20 World Cup, so why add more unless these specific stakes have more importance? But you also have the opposing teams as well. Loki and Charles for France, Kaiser and Ness for Germany, Lorenzo for Italy, Bunny for Spain, and the other soon-to-be-revealed New Generation 11 playing in the tournament. Japan honestly feels outclassed, so them losing is a real possibility. With BLUELOCK soon to be playing against England in the group stage, and with previous predictions of Rayo's goal and Augi's appearance, you probably thought I was done with my England predictions. Well, you'd be wrong, because I predict that Nagi and Kiora will perform a chemical reaction in England that leads to a goal. Kiora and Nagi, while it may not appear that way in the main series, had a kind of rivalry during the episode Nagi spinoff. Kiora and Nagi matched up a number of times, with Kiora winning some and Nagi winning others. Nagi wanted to be the source of frustration for Kiora, kind of setting Kiora up for a way to pay Nagi back for that decision. And going into the U20 World Cup, a chemical reaction with Nagi could be interesting. Against Augi, Nagi would want to show what he's capable of, and with Nagi essentially existing on the borderline for his future career, I could see Kiora potentially sending Nagi a pass like his grinder accelerating shot, which fakes people out, to which Nagi could easily control and motion it into something like a fake volley goal, or like what he did in the final episode Nagi chapter. Either way, a chemical reaction between Nagi and Kiora would be sick, and I hope to see going into the match against England. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I do believe that Rain is going to get a hat-trick in the U20 World Cup, but he isn't the only player that I think will do so. I predict that Kaiser and Ness together will lead to a hat-trick being scored for Germany against Japan. Kaiser was already a beast before his awakening, and with him now understanding the trick to his ego and likely perfecting the Magnus impact, he's going to be an even bigger beast going into the U20 World Cup. And with Ness's awakening and wanting to cast a spell on Kaiser, a Ness and Kaiser hat-trick just feels inevitable. Imagine Ness forces Kaiser into a mindset of restriction, then hits a drive pass like he did to Isagi at the end of the PXG game, to which Kaiser scores with a direct Magnus impact or a direct Kaiser impact. That would be pretty damn insane. I could also see Ness scoring a goal for himself, since Ness was a former goal scorer before he allied himself with Kaiser. But a Ness and Kaiser hat-trick just feels inevitable. Speaking on the Kaiser impact, there is another prediction that I have for Gagamaru going into the U20 World Cup. Being that I think Gagamaru will stop the Kaiser impact at least once during his match against Germany. When you look at Gagamaru's abilities, his goalkeeping skill is based on his reflective action, and thanks to his 2 weeks of training, Gagamaru's reflexive ability has been enhanced and improved going into the U20 World Cup. And when you look at how the Kaiser impact works, Gagamaru should be able to stop it based on his previous experience. During the debut Kaiser impact, Isagi noticed that the thing that made the Kaiser impact insane was the fact that he couldn't see Kaiser's leg swing when he made the shot. It was almost like his swing was instantaneous. And sure, there are other factors like the speed and power of the Kaiser impact to consider, but its main element of deadliness is the fact that the shot is made almost immediately with no motion for his leg. So to simplify it a lot, Gagamaru just won't be able to tell when the shot is being made. But there has already been some training for that in the NEL, like when Gagamaru stopped the Barou stealth kill shot. Sure, the stealth kill shot isn't as fast or as powerful as the Kaiser impact, but the fact that Gagamaru had to jump for the shot without knowing when the shot would be made is the actual ticker here. And Gagamaru didn't just barely touch the shot, he didn't just block the shot, he full on caught it. I think Gagamaru with his training will be able to block the Kaiser impact at least once, especially since he's been on the same team as Kaiser for the NEL, and therefore has an idea as to how he uses the ability. You can say what you want, but I have my faith in Gagamaru. I also have my faith in another character, Augi, because I predict that Augi is going to shut down a bunny goal in the game against Spain. Looking at what Bunny is capable of, his greatest weapon that we know of is his jumping ability. And who else is good at jumping? You guessed it, Aiku. And Augi too, I guess. With Bunny likely playing as the ace of the Spanish team, or at least one of them, our defenders who have incredible jumping ability are going to be the core of the team defense. Seeing Bunny get swatted out of the air by this glamorous defender is something that I need to see, and is something that I predict will 100% happen going into the game against Spain. Now, I talked about my prediction that Japan is going to lose the U20 World Cup, but who do I think is going to win? Well, that ties into a previous prediction that I had, and I actually believe that Germany will be the team to win the U20 World Cup. You already have my prediction of Kaiser scoring a hat-trick during the U20 World Cup, and I expect that it will be Japan in which he does that. The rivalry between Isagi and Kaiser was set up to continue in the U20 World Cup, especially with how the final play of the NEL went. Kaiser was also set up as the next Noa by Noa himself, being someone even he considers to be a rival to stoke his own development. The only other characters to do that up until this point are Loki and Ego. Going into the U20 World Cup, I expect a Kaiser hat-trick along with a potential Ness goal will be the key factors to shutting down BLUELOCK, resulting in them losing the U20 World Cup. It would force more blame onto Isagi as to being at fault, and would draw an even bigger parallel between Isagi and Ego. Isagi and Ego talked all big about how Japan will win the U20 World Cup, and now both players are suffering as a result. Isagi received hate from the world for failing to deliver, and Ego gets fired from his position as the director of BLUELOCK. It feels inevitable that Japan is going to lose the U20 World Cup, and it will be at the fault of Kaiser, Ness, and the German team. But for my final bingo card prediction, it relates to a duo that a lot of you guys are excited to see. That being Sai and Shido. But don't get too excited over them, because I believe that Sai and Shido's chemical reaction will get stopped or will fail. The chemical reaction between these two characters was set up to be one of the most anticipated and powerful combos in the entire series. I could see Sai trying to use Shido to get back at Bunny, and the chemical reaction either being stopped or just failing to produce any kind of result. It'd be interesting to see this combo fail, leading to a mental struggle for Sai as to how he would defeat Bunny. This could result in Sai needing Rain or Isagi to defeat Bunny, leading to them defeating Spain in the U20 World Cup. Setting Shido up as failing and being essentially abandoned by Sai could also force him to evolve, which is desperately needed since Shido has been stagnant in his evolution since he was introduced in the series. But with that, those were simply my BLUELOCK Japan U20 bingo card predictions going into the U20 World Cup arc. Now, this video was simply my predictions for the U20 World Cup, and if you have any different predictions or disagree with any of my predictions, that's totally fine. But if you want to hear even more crazy predictions, get ready for the BLUELOCK U20 bingo stream tomorrow. You aren't going to want to miss it. And just to make things easier for you as a whole, here's my full bingo sheet of predictions. Aside from that though, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members on my channel who help support me and my content. And if you wish to earn some awesome benefits like they do, and even get your name mentioned in the BLUELOCK New World movie, become a member yourself and help support me moving forward. And just a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're ever interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video, what are your BLUELOCK U20 World Cup predictions? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe to see more awesome BLUELOCK content just like this.